Welcome into the podcast. I'm Brett.
I am Dorian.
And we got our Thursday Throwback, Revenge of the Sith edition.
Yep. So
episode 3.
Can I just say, I'm just relieved that we're now in the good to decent territory of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, we got the bad out.
Yep.
We're heading on into nothing but blue skies and, rainbows.
Maybe
basically.
Some partly
cloudy
yeah.
in certain areas, but
yeah.
Only partly cloudy.
Yeah, only partly.
But yeah, Revenge of the Sith. This is definitely, in my opinion, the best of the prequels.
Oh, it's not an argument.
If not one of the better. I mean, I might be blasphemous, but I'm not going to spoil it. This is up there.
Let's hold that up.
So let's talk about kind of first impressions watching this movie.
Yeah.
Starting with you, Dorian.
So I was 13 at the time when this movie came out. I remember it being really the only big movie on my radar for that year. And
which is funny because wasn't the other one Batman Begins?
Batman Begins, yeah, but Batman Begins was not on my radar.
No, I know. I just think it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I think I do like Batman Begins more than this movie here, if I'm going to be completely honest.
I get it.
But yeah, no, it is ironic here.
Yeah.
But that being said, no, I watched it and I was honestly blown away when I was 13. Even being as young as I was, I knew this was the definitive movie of the prequels.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing this movie. It's pretty epic, but can't really remember seeing it as much as episode 2 because I don't remember why. I think I probably saw it a couple of times in theaters, but for whatever reason, I think just that Yoda scene with the lightsaber just burned in my brain.
Yeah, because I remember as a kid, episode 2, really ending on a banger note as a kid, just because that last half hour when, you have the arena, the Jedi show up, the clone troopers show up, you have that fight with Dooku, the dual wielding with Anakin, and then Yoda showing up at the end, just being a baller.
But this movie adds to that and then some.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
So let's talk about how this movie kind of differs.
Yeah. So obviously the prequels have a lot more in the way of politics in this. In these movies. Now this one, I feel like there is less political stuff. Where episode 1 and 2, the political stuff was pretty much dragged out front and center. This I feel like is a little bit more relegated to the background. It's still there. It's still present. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think it's as much as episode 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think it's still pretty political. It's just a little bit different as far as how they're handling it.
Yeah.
The Senate's kind of stuff's happening in the background throughout the whole movie, but it's definitely focused on specific Jedi's perspectives of what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like it's more in terms of the political side, it becomes more philosophical political. What should be done about this current situation?
Right.
How should the powers be delegated? All this stuff here. Yeah. But the pace much better in this movie than the previous two. I know we have a little bit of disagreement of which one has the worst pace between episode 1 and episode 2. But this one, no, without a doubt, I feel like the pace is just on point.
Yeah, I would say it's close to perfect, honestly.
Yeah.
Really reminds me the pacing of A New Hope. Just constantly something happening. There's not really any lulls in it. There's a couple little ones, but nothing really pertinent to slowing the story down.
No,
that's all for a reason.
The story is, I feel like for the most part continuously pushed forward, and that's what we needed, especially to wrap things up here. I think this is a movie that honestly keeps you invested.
Oh yeah, big time.
I mean,
big time.
Episode 1, episode 2, I don't feel like they do nearly as good of a job as keeping the audience invested, just because there are lulls or pacing problems. The characters aren't nearly as likable or as fleshed out, whereas this one I feel like does a much better job in that regard.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And darkest Star Wars movie ever made.
Oh,
easily.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
What other Star Wars movie can you say, kids got killed?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Just this one and the last one.
Yeah.
Because he killed the little sand peoples.
Oh, well, yeah.
But not little cute Jedi kids.
Yeah, no. I mean, come on. Who gives
Master Skywalker, what are we going to do? Yeah, and he jumps back. I was just, oh gosh.
Yeah. So, but all right. Well, tell you what. Let's get into some. Let's talk about the characters in this movie here.
Yeah.
So, first up, the man of the hour is Anakin.
Yeah.
So Anakin is still a short-sighted. He's unable to see the big picture. Even even in just like little things, like at the very beginning when he's flying his ship in that battle over Coruscant, he's on a mission. His main objective is to go save the Chancellor, right?
Yeah.
And then like when the clone troopers are running into some trouble, he wants to help them, and Obi-Wan has to remind him, like, no, they're doing their job, so we can do our job here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think you kind of see that throughout the movie. He's just very short-sighted, not big picture kind of guy.
I think part of that is, I mean, it was all for good intention. At least that part of the movie was like he wanted to help his friends that he's been fighting with.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, like they had an objective, they needed to do it.
Right.
And there's this different stuff throughout the movie where he is short-sighted, but I think that's, the dark side clouding his judgment, but also just him having those dreams and being not focused on the here and now, focused on just that piece.
Well, and one thing I've noticed on this rewatch and these movies is he's not very duty bound. He really just pretty much everything he does, for the most part, is either lip service to the Jedi Order, but like the main things that he actually goes out and does when he rebels, they're all for selfish reasons here.
Yeah.
Like going to like, abandoning his mission to protect Padme on Naboo, going to Tatooine, which could potentially be dangerous and get, Padme killed during there. And, even like, just especially in this movie, I mean, he does things that benefit him personally in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the first side of the dark side kind of creeping in, because it's very selfish motives he has for what he's doing, obviously.
Yeah, I still think he's kind of creepy. I mean, which makes sense because, I mean, he was creeping hard in episode 2. I mean, he's just, but, I think specifically like when he's just standing there watching his wife brush his hair, kind of looks like reminds me of a little bit of a serial killer vibe here.
Yeah, I can see that. I think part of it, too, is Anakin's away for long periods of time from his wife.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, he's fighting a war. So, I mean, like, you have a right to be a little creepy when you haven't seen your wife for a couple months.
I guess so, yeah. But, I mean, speaking of which, here, I was going to say this for later, but I'll get into it now. Like, can we just talk about how garbage Anakin is from like actually trying to like conceal his marriage?
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Like, he straight
up says he doesn't care.
Well, right, but he like goes and like
hugs her and tries to kiss her in front of all these people
in a public place with like all the senators like
creeping around
a stone throw away,
pretty much.
And then, not to mention, is like he's just chilling out on that balcony where you have like literally a bunch of flying cars flying by your house every day here. It's like,
that's kind of odd.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know what the paparazzi situation is like in the Star Wars universe, but if it was anything like it was, in today's day and age.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he would have been ousted a long time ago.
Oh, big time.
Some sort of tabloid.
Well, I mean, we get a little insight into that in the Clone Wars, actually.
Oh,
with Obi-Wan.
Oh, you're talking
knowing
about
he's talking with Padme.
Yeah,
and there's something going on, but they kind of like choose to look past it.
Yeah.
Probably because he's a chosen one.
Well, also probably just because they're in war here. And
totally.
They need the people. They need the Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed during this rewatch, not as annoying in this movie. I mean, I think he still has his moments. I definitely think he's still has some terrible deliveries on some lines.
Oh yeah,
but no, not as nearly as annoying as he was in episode 2. And I think he has understandable motivations. He wants to, basically save his family.
Yeah,
yeah. Now I think he's very gullible and dense, and I know you have some opinions on this here, and let me say my piece here and I'll let you say your piece. So reason why I think he's very gullible and dense in this one is just because it's established later on in the movie that he knows that there is a secret Sith Lord lurking around in the Senate, and then you go to this opera theater thing with Palpatine. He starts talking about the dark side of the Force, Darth Plagueis, and legitimately like tells you, hey, you know this thing that might really, really help out your current situation in life? Well, let me tell you about Darth Plagueis the Wise here and all that. Yeah. And like super tailor-made conversation here. And he's just like, oh, well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty neat.
Like knowing full well that there is a Sith Lord lurking around somewhere in the Senate of the Republic.
One of the notes I wrote in that time, because I kind of do like my own commentary. I write it down to get ready for the note portion of it. So my commentary kind of for that scene was, how does this senator know these tales of the Sith?
Right.
Obviously, that's a red flag to anyone. If someone starts talking to you about something that is secret.
Yeah. Well, it's like if you just had like a friend that was just, you were hanging out one day and then he says like, hey, let me tell you about this story about these Satanists here and all that.
And you're like,
and he's like going into very
how do you know about Satanists?
Well, and going into like, extensive detail and like actually painting them in a positive light at the end of that conversation or story. You'd be like, well, okay.
Yeah, I guess we're not friends anymore.
Something, but if you throw in any other Jedi in that situation, they'd be like,
you're under arrest.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I don't know if I count it as gullible. I mean, obviously there's elements of gullibility for Anakin. He has his only loved one besides himself, basically, on the line, like having those visions, and he wants answers, and the Jedi didn't give it to him.
Sure. I mean, no, they basically just gave him the stoic, monk-like answer. Say,
there's nothing you can do.
Do not crave attachment. Train yourself to like, handle this, passing, this death that is going to inevitably come about.
Yeah.
Train yourself to let go.
Well, they said it's dangerous because some visions might not happen. Like kind of, and I'll talk about this a little later, but Anakin's drive to save his wife is what turns him into Darth Vader and what kills her, essentially.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like,
so it's self-fulfilling prophecy of, if you just let that be and focused on what's going on now, it probably wouldn't have happened.
It probably wouldn't. And I mean, something. And I mean, you could... Exactly, yeah.
But I think Hayden does a great job in this movie of...
Okay, define great.
10 times better than the last movie.
Okay, I will give you that. Like, yes, it's definitely an improvement over the last movie.
I think the way he handles the dialogue is so much better, and I think the writing's just a little bit better, but there's still obviously some scenes where you're like...
I hate you! Or...
Yeah, or like, the Senator has more cringy scenes than he does.
Oh, very much so, But no, or even like, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil here.
Well, I get that because of the whole struggle, the whole movie. Like I get that even just having conversations, with friends who are in different political alliances than other friends. That I understand that more now than I did when I was younger.
I guess, but I mean,
when people are blinded and they only see one side of something, they're just like. Basically, like, screw you. Well, you're wrong. I'm right.
Right. No, I mean, most definitely. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit deeper, but I definitely think the delivery on that line.
It's not the greatest.
Came off very whiny.
Yeah, but I would say that those are few and far between. Unlike the last movie, where most of his dialogue was horrible.
Oh, very much so. I mean, yeah. I mean, at least like it's this time the dialogue for Anakin around is not cringy. Well, like, very rapey lines that he's given here.
Pretty much. I mean, I think Hayden does a great job. His turn to the dark side is much more subtle than I remember, and especially way more subtle than Kylo Ren.
Well, Kylo Ren, we never really saw him turn to the dark side in the movie.
No. So think about it in terms of opposites, I guess.
Okay.
So like, Anakin's turn to the dark side was way like because we already had him as an established dark side character, Kylo Ren. Yeah. His turn to the light was like a dime, literally like a dime.
Yeah.
Where Anakin's was much more over the course of 2 movies, basically.
Oh yeah,
and 4 years basically.
Yeah.
So it to me it made a lot more sense in this. Part of it being denied all these things like rank a master, even though he's on the council.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's much more well done here. I mean, no, by the end of it, I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. I get like why you actually why you made the decision that you actually made here.
And I think that the things that kind of were part of that too were the Jedi want Anakin to spy on the Chancellor,
sure,
which is treason technically, and they're like, hey, we got to do what we got to do, and it's like, well, when you're taught these, like that would be like I don't want to get all spiritual on this, but sure. Like if you're a part of a church or an organization that has these moral values,
sure,
like,
yeah,
hey, we want you to kind of not do any of that right now and just do what we say,
or we want you to do something that's considered questionable at this point.
Questionable at best, yeah. Like, hey, we need you to do this, and it's kind of like,
yeah,
why?
Yeah,
since when do we do that? We don't do that.
Yeah,
like I get the mindset of Anakin going, like, are the Jedi corrupt? And especially, we'll talk about that scene later.
Yeah,
but the Mace Windu scene, from his perspective, much different than our perspective.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll talk a little bit more in depth here, but yeah.
But it's creating more distrust, and then talking about the prophecy line with Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Mace saying, where Yoda goes, a prophecy misread could have been. Which, I mean, obviously it was.
Yeah, which, at some point we are going to have to discuss like the balance of the Force. Like, what does that actually mean? Yeah. Is it actually anything good? And like, because I feel like that the whole concept of like bringing balance to the Force, correct me if I'm wrong, was introduced in the prequels. I don't think they talk about it really at all in like the original trilogy at all.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But literally, I don't think it makes any sense at all. Just because it's like, okay, so if the whole mission is to like bring balance, so like put the equal amount of light side and dark side users on the playing field, right? Okay,
well, that's not how they interpret it, and I think that's kind of where we see it go wrong.
Right, but that's how it pretty much played out, and that's how 100%, it got fulfilled for the most part.
I mean, from our knowledge of the prequels before any of this other canon came out, right, was 2 Sith lived, and 2 Jedi lived,
and then one of them died. One became a Jedi, and then another one died, and so there was only one Jedi left. Yeah. Here. So that being said, I mean, it's it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, so bringing balance to the Force. So ultimately, you have an even amount on both sides here in terms of like light side and dark side users. Granted, just the amount of power those 2 sides have are definitely polar opposites, like at that point in time. Yeah. So then there becomes only one light side user, and then which is Luke Skywalker by the end of the Return of the Jedi. Basically, Vader sacrifices himself, or kills Palpatine in the process here. So really, the Force has become unbalanced from that perspective to just the light side here. And then it becomes even more unbalanced, like in episode 7, where like he's training more Jedi here, and there are no Sith available.
Well, and that's why Kylo gave into the dark side,
right. But then like you have like, okay, now there are more dark side users on that side here. And I mean, so really like what was the prophecy only for like supposed to happen for like just 2 minutes or something like that? Because
I don't know.
Yeah, it makes no sense really.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think we'll get answers in the future. Maybe.
I mean,
I think Anakin's jealousy and kind of his push to the dark side also comes from his jealousy of Obi-Wan and Padme. Because he's like, wait, why? He's like, has Obi-Wan been here? Yeah. Like when you have that chronic way of thinking of like worst case scenario. Well, and he's like, wait, is Padme like? That's what I got from this movie. At least I don't know about you. Yeah. Was like, do you and Obi-Wan have a thing right now? Like,
yeah. I mean, I definitely.
And then he sees him in the vision. Yeah. And is like,
yeah, why the F is Obi-Wan with my wife? Yeah. Well, and not to mention, I mean, obviously in, this movie and in the previous movie, we have seen that Anakin does have underlying resentment for Obi-Wan that has not really come to the surface with Obi-Wan until like, the end of this movie here.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, it's kind of like one of those, it's kind of a love-hate relationship. Anakin has respect for Obi-Wan. He loves Obi-Wan like a brother here, but at the same time, there's things about Obi-Wan and things that Obi-Wan has done in the past and even currently that still like put Anakin on edge here.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And, like I talked about earlier, the jealousy feeds that dark side, that chronic way of thinking, and then, self-fulfilling prophecy of Padme dying or the events that he kind of let himself into.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
But, yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the other main character in this one, which would happen to be Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So I think this is where you really get to start seeing Obi-Wan from the original trilogies actually start to take form.
Mm-hmm.
I still think he is played for laughs, at some points in this movie. It was really bad, I think, in the last movie because he was getting his butt kicked a lot. And, so, half the time is for comedic effect here.
Yeah, pretty much.
But I think he's more likable in this movie, and he has a respect for Anakin that I think is present in this movie that was not present in the last movie because he didn't I think his respect for Anakin was really insignificant for the most part. Whereas here he actually kind of addresses him and treats him more like an equal for the most part here.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think he really starts breaking the stoicism when, you see and showing more of a human side when Anakin starts turning to the dark side or when he has to confront the fact that, his apprentice is gone and, he can't do anything to bring him back here. You see him start to get emotional when he finds out that he was the one that killed the kids in the temple here. And then he's like, I cannot kill Anakin. He's like my brother here. And then even when he's having that monologue where he's telling them you were the chosen one here and all this here.
Yeah. No, yeah, this is Obi-Wan being Obi-Wan. And something I picked out in this was Obi-Wan is the OG Red Leader.
So what exactly do you mean by that? Because I'm not entirely sure what you're
Red
referring
Leader,
to. Yeah, right.
From the original.
Right, correct.
He's called Red Leader.
Is he called Red Leader in that battle?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how about that?
One of the clones call him Red Leader, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
All right.
So that was the only thing I really had to say. I think that, I agree with you on most of those when it comes to Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
He's much more seasoned in this movie. He's much more. He understands Anakin is growing up, and Anakin is more mature now, and he's kind of letting him have his own. You even see it when he's talking about, hey, yeah, you're on the Jedi Council, but no one's ever done it this age. Give it time, you will be a master.
Yeah, exactly.
He's trust the process. It's gonna be fine.
He actually believes in Anakin. Hey, you will get there someday, man. You just gotta let things kind of play out here.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah. Next up on the list is Padme.
Yep.
So we were kind of talking about this a little bit. I kind of found it a little bit odd that she starts down in the Republic in this movie, just because in the last movie, she was pretty much on the side of okay, we have to fight the Separatists now. We have to do these things. And obviously we haven't really seen the transition of her opinion or the growth of her opinion, in between these movies per se. We haven't seen those moments play out on the big screen.
Right.
Here. But then we flip over to the point where she's, starting to doubt the Republic and starting to doubt the mission, which, no, she is right. I just think it's I think it's a little weird that we don't see her rationale of why it got to that point.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think it's because I don't find it odd that she's doubting it. I think, if you take a situation like that, because honestly, it shouldn't have lasted that long. It was only supposed to be for a short amount of time that you give someone like this the power.
Right, exactly.
So the fact that he wasn't willing to give it up earlier, I think, is what caused alarms in her mind of okay, maybe we're becoming something we're trying to fight. We're becoming a dictatorship, and we're not fighting for freedom. We're fighting and slowly transforming into something we didn't ever want it to be.
Yeah. Obviously it's, a little bit of foreshadowing to that scene that happens in the Senate where they literally throw out the whole idea of a democracy and says, this is going to be an empire now here.
Yeah, well, after the whole attack on Palpatine, and he's like, the Jedi are now the enemy. They tried to kill me, but I'm trying to overthrow the government, whatever.
And like, I don't think I put it in the notes, but I really, really liked how they went about it, saying like, okay, we are going to create a more authoritarian government, essentially a dictatorship, in order to create a safe and prosperous society here. And so basically we are going to like trade freedom for security, which is very realistic.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, the Jedi are a big threat to someone like Palpatine, like, especially if you're almost attacked, and killed by one. You know, there's these radicals basically that have space powers, and we need to take them down.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, they are a threat. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, and obviously Padme, I mean, she gets put like in a rock and a hard place, like, like pretty much halfway through this movie when like things start hitting the fan and big choices are starting to get made and all that. And it's like, and now she's like, okay, everything that I've known that, everything is stand for. So like, the Jedi that I considered allies are now an enemy of the Republic here. It's like, okay, well, what do I do? And now the Republic doesn't exist anymore. It's become an empire. It's like, okay, well, and now my husband is like, teaming up with the Empire. It's like, what do I do? Like everything's kind of like up in the air and just muddled. And yeah, I think it's just like, I think it was just a really, just like, what anybody would really do if like they were thrown in that situation here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. And, you see the trauma that happens from eventually leads to her dying.
Yeah.
Kind of some things I was thinking about through Padme. I really like her arc in this movie. I think
I think it's the best one. Yeah. And, like out of the prequels, her arc
because you knew she was going to die.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
You got the Leia hair in this movie.
Yeah, Padme. You do. Like the first scene she's in, she has Leia hair.
I think it was interesting. She was way more intuitive in this movie, I think, which I think is she can feel Anakin from afar in certain clips. There's like a duality of showing Anakin showing her and her reacting to what Anakin's doing without actually being there.
Yeah, like when he's waiting in the temple after he outed Palpatine as a Sith to the Jedi and all that. Yeah.
And then that part of that is because I think the babies have made Padme Force sensitive.
I mean, possibly. I mean, it doesn't really.
I would say slightly for sure, but you kind of like can assume that because she's able to feel like those things and feel Anakin's turn and all that.
Unless like that whole scene was just more done for like dramatic effect than anything,
it could have been,
and just showing like Anakin, like just his kind of like without any words speaking, his turmoil on like the decision that he just made and was it the right decision here?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that the character of Padme is definitely interesting in this, and is what leads Anakin to the dark side.
Sure, yeah. And then I'd say the last character on our list that we're really going to be talking about is finally got his chance to have his spot in place in the spotlight is Palpatine and Sidious. I think he's a genius political strategist, just how everything's orchestrated. I mean, we're talking like a guy who literally fueled both sides of the war so he like just grabbed more power in like the established society here.
Yep, check and mate.
Yeah, check and mate. And I don't think he's very subtle in this movie when he's luring Anakin. I mean, obviously, like I mentioned before, Anakin just kind of is like, pretty like just open to the idea and gullible to it here.
Yeah, I think part of that is he doesn't have to be at this point.
No, I mean,
he pretty much said,
like near the beginning of the movie, like I will have a new apprentice.
He's very definitive.
Yeah, which I mean, I think probably what helped him, understand or see that is like when he killed Dooku, like at the beginning of this movie here, he's do it. Yeah.
I think that's a big part. Is he like Palpatine has some kind of foresight that no one else has right now because he is the dark side essentially.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to be subtle because at this point, I think he knows he already has all his cards have been played.
Yeah.
He's like, I've already won this battle.
Yeah.
So even if I out myself, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can't do anything about it.
No, absolutely. No, and I do think that he should have played his cards a little bit closer to the chest when telling Anakin about the life-saving power. And I mean, we kind of talked about this, that like if you took like any other Jedi when he's saying about like, you know, telling him about Darth Plagueis here, it'd be like, okay, yeah, you're coming downtown. We got some questions for you here. But I do watching this.
Go ahead.
Watching this movie, I mean, it did make me realize that I do want like a prequel show, maybe on Disney Plus, House of Cards, Palpatine.
Yeah,
show.
I mean, there could be.
I mean,
just his perspective and what he was doing the whole time.
Well, because I think there was supposed to be like a
Palpatine movie
or some type of project. Like I don't know if it was a show or if a movie or something like that before I think Disney acquired them, but I think there was supposed to be like a Palpatine origin story where it kind of talked about Palpatine, how he became to be and all that.
That'd be cool.
Little fun fact. Apparently, Corey Balrog, the guy who directed the new God of War game, he actually read the script for that project, and that's what actually inspired him to make the new God of War, because he's like saying like, okay, here's this character that, you know, was just presented as just like bad or evil or this one certain way. Now I'm actually emphasizing with this character more than I ever imagined that I could here.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know. Aside from the cheesy stuff, I think Palpatine, he's the master strategist. He at this point doesn't care because he's like, I've already played all my cards.
Yeah.
You know? Like you don't have anything on me.
No, now it's like,
well, you see that scene, and Anakin kind of does raise because he turns his lightsaber on, and is like, "You're coming with me," and then they're kind of pacing, and he turns it off, and he's like, lets his guard down a little, and is like, okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, that scene in particular, obviously, like, he completely meant to, like, say, this is my reveal. I am revealing, like, what poker cards I have in my hand right now to you here. You can either, you know, accept it, or you can just, walk away and deny it here. Or, you know, but, no, I think he knew that, obviously, Anakin was not going to kill him at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about some good stuff in this movie.
There's a decent amount in there here.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot more than like the past two movies. So, one thing that I noticed in this movie is there's a lot of PG-13 fatalities in this movie. We're talking like Dooku getting his hands and head chopped off. General Grievous's organs basically bursting into flames, and his eyes are bursting into flames too.
Yep.
Plus, I mean, Anakin getting his limbs chopped off and burned alive. I mean, I feel like all this, like, they consulted Ed Boon on here, you know?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But,
fatality.
And I mean, as I mentioned before, the pacing in this movie is actually good for a change.
Yeah.
It actually has, you know, good world building. Most of the action scenes are well done and well choreographed. Like, even the Dooku fight compared to last movie,
way better.
Yeah. And then Order 66 is easily one of the best Star Wars movie moments in history ever. I mean, it's the perfect blend of like an epic scene playing out and tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'd say that's good. It's kind of the what would you call it? I don't know. Maybe like the Romeo, like when Romeo and Juliet, you know, like there's this bittersweet kind of part of it where you think one of them, you know, basically that tragedy piece that plays out in this movie is essentially people you trust with your life turning on you on a dime.
Yeah, no,
and there's nothing you can do.
Exactly. Like, you're on the losing end of the battle here, and it's like you've really done nothing wrong to, like, you know, get to that point here, and like you're essentially being betrayed here. I mean, this whole movie is like just a tragedy essentially playing out here.
Something that I don't know where I heard it, if it was in a video I watched or what, but so, you know, a lot of what Anakin goes through is because he's not supposed to have a family.
Yeah.
Right? Apparently that guy that gets shot on the bridge, remember the bridge scene? And like that's like the epic scene, I think, where like the most epic of all the Order 66 scenes is when he's like, let's go.
Oh, yeah,
and then they all just stop. And
exactly. Yeah.
He has a family, apparently.
Does he?
That's what I heard. And I don't know.
Well, that makes this like 10 times worse.
I know. So I don't know. I'll have to research that more and get back to you guys. But
yeah,
apparently he does, and the Jedi Council was fine with it.
Yeah,
so.
Mutated head Gandalf Star Wars guy.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name either, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing I forgot to mention is like this is the first PG-13 Star Wars movie. I remember that was
the rest of them are PG.
Well, yeah, except for like the new ones that have come out. But no, I remember this was actually like a big deal, like when this was happening here, just because like parents were like, "Oh, do we have our kids watch this movie?"
I mean, it is super dark.
It's a pretty dark movie for a kids movie, yeah. But Yoda, continuing what we're talking about. The good parts and what we liked about this movie. Yoda gets to be a baller in this movie. He's got some pretty witty lines. That one part where he just like comes to confront Sidious and he just like knocks those Imperial guards out like cold. But and then Yoda and Sidious, it's a great fight scene.
Big time,
yeah. Like I always wanted to see that scene as a kid, and the fact that it played out, it's great. Mm-hmm. I was super happy that scene actually came to be. And then this movie brings everything home in a nice package. This is giving everybody, the closure and like actually showing the stuff that we've always actually wanted to see come out of these movies. How he actually turned to Darth Vader, how everything came to be, how the Empire, all this stuff here. This is like the most eventful out of the prequel movies.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the real showcase of this movie is Anakin versus Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I mean,
if not the entire franchise.
Prequel trilogy. Yeah.
I would say any of them this is the best fight.
No, this is the best fight.
Yeah.
No, easily. But I mean, they cranked that speed and of the fight choreography up to 11 with this. Like I remember thinking like, on this rewatch, I'm like, thinking like, is Obi-Wan versus Anakin the best fight? Just because I'm like, that Darth Maul fight is pretty good and well choreographed. But then like, that from that first, swing of the lightsaber out the gate, I'm like, oh my gosh, they are going at it.
Yeah.
Here. And, I heard like a little piece of like a trivia, I guess here is like Lucas, wanted to capture the Jedi at their peak with this fight scene.
Yeah.
I think he nailed it.
Big time.
Yeah. I mean, cinematography is pretty spectacular. I mean, you're fighting like on a volcanic planet here. You got like lava erupting everywhere and all that. You have fire in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's great. And then, it has a lot of weight and a lot of emotion to this fight.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much agree with you on all this, and then the CGI is just so much better in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Obi-Wan Anakin fight, I think, is the culmination of everything Star Wars. Like, you get it's number one, like the most vested anyone I think is in any Star Wars fight, except for maybe Vader Luke.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Vader Luke fight, like at the end of like Return of the Jedi, I definitely think is like obviously
it's right up there too.
It's right up there. I mean, obviously very significant.
Yeah, but even thinking through like what the actors had to do for these, because they're doing their own stunts as far as the lightsaber combat.
Yeah,
like, they had to learn how to sword fight straight up for these prequels.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so much thought, and these fights in this movie are just top anything else in the prequels and the sequels.
Yeah, no, very much.
And
so.
Even the original trilogy. Sorry, people who think that Luke and Vader. That's not even
Empire
close.
fight.
It's not even close.
No, I mean, no. Here's the thing: like the Empire fight between Luke and Vader. No, it's very good. It's the best fight in the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. But that being said, that was the best that they could do with that time. This is the best that we can do with like essentially modern technology here, and I mean the results speak for themselves. I mean, come
on. Yeah. So we'll see how other future movies kind of stack up to this, because I don't think anything in the sequels did anything close to this.
No. I think like the only thing in the sequels that really came close to like really a memorable like fight scene that really stuck out in my head was right after they kill Snoke and they fight the guards.
The Praetorian
just
Guard.
because they have like some really really cool like things that they play around with, like in terms of like ideas and how to use a lightsaber. But one thing I do want to say about that fight, I mean, they must have like really tired themselves the hell out in this fight if they're just like in the next movie when they're just like in New Hope, where they're just like barely like touching swords with each other and just like they're just still tired from that fight.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's even a cool thing that we see is throughout the progression of the fight, you see them getting tired. Like when they're fighting on just that little square thing that's hovering, they're just like, I'm so done. Like I'm giving it everything I have.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, for those of you who haven't really done any sparring or fighting, like just a little bit of it, it's enough to like get you winded real quick.
Oh, big time. Yeah. So with that said, I mean, I have nothing but good things to talk about, especially the fighting.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I love the world building. I think the pacing is near perfect. Like I said, I love the storyline. I think everything kind of happens very, very well, with the exception of some cheesy dialogue kind of thrown in there, and kind of some missed opportunities, I think, with certain characters. But other than that, I mean, it's like you can't really complain.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about like what we weren't super crazy about in this movie here.
Yeah.
So I didn't like the voice work for the battle droids. I mean, I get it. They're played for comedic effect, but I like the voices in the previous two movies for them a lot better. And the dialogue in this movie, still not great. I mean, it's not as cringy or as bad, but it's still not the best written dialogue I've ever seen. And there's some spotty CGI at parts. Legitimately, I don't understand why the clone troopers are CGI. That bothered me.
Yeah, me too. I didn't realize it until watching it again, and even talking with my wife watched it with me, and she was like, "Why are the clones CGI?" She actually said that, and I wrote it down. And I was like,
"Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean,
there's literally no reason for them to be CGI.
There is no reason whatsoever. And the fact that they were, I just think is like,
I think it takes you out of it a little.
It does, and it's like Lucas like really just like jumped into that pool of CGI instead of like dipping his toe into it here.
Yeah, totally.
But, the Grievous fight could have been so much better. I mean, how do you make a fight that involves 5 lightsabers right out the gate underwhelming here,
Yeah, I think for me it wasn't as underwhelming because as much as Grievous thinks he's the shiz, he just wasn't.
Sure, no, I understand that, but let me put it in perspective, at least for me. So during the lead up to this movie, like I saw the General Grievous action figure, and as like
as a kid, you're probably like, wow, this is good.
Well, the thing is like, with any action figure, for those of you who don't know, they typically tend to spoil like, things in the movie here, or like, things that are meant to be, kind of kept under wraps or something like that. They typically spoil it. So that being said, when I saw the General Grievous action figure as a kid, and this guy has 4 arms and 4 lightsabers, I'm like, oh snap, this fight is going to be off the chain. It's going to be all kinds of crazy. And literally that whole moment that, he's fighting him with like 4 lightsabers is like pretty much over within like, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, instead what we got was like, kind of a chase scene involving like a wheel and some like bird dog thing that Obi-Wan's riding and all that. And then, and no lightsabers.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm still kind of butthurt about that one, but and I think there's a poor writing with people finding out that Palpatine's a Sith. Like we kind of mentioned earlier, Anakin knows that there's a secret Sith in the Senate. Doesn't find it suspicious when Darth Plagueis is like giving him the Darth Plagueis talk here, and then let's see here. So one thing that I actually did not get is like the Jedi have suspicions about Palpatine. They also sense that the dark side is surrounding the Chancellor. Yep. And I understand that there is like, the dark side is clouding their view, but it's like, okay, so here are some known facts. there's probably most likely somebody from the Sith infiltrating the Republic. We have suspicions about this one guy in particular. Also, the dark side is surrounding this guy.
Right.
I felt like they should have been a little bit quicker to react on that here, or at least investigate it further.
Yeah, and I think I wrote it in all caps because I was just like, it was all clouded. They couldn't sense it because of Sidious. Mm-hmm. Now, think about it from terms of, police detective. Essentially they're all detectives.
Sure.
Like that's what they do. Now let's say you have one guy and he's a bad guy, he's corrupt, but you don't know if he's actually the one pulling the strings. Potentially there could be an organization behind him, and in order for you to stop what's going on, as great as it would be to have that one guy, you need everyone behind him.
Sure. No, I
think that's kind of why they probably didn't pull the trigger. The dark side did surround him, but they weren't convinced he was the one.
Yeah.
There could have been someone pulling the strings from behind him.
Yeah. No, that does make sense. But it definitely seems like, they let that, kind of go on longer than they should. If they had those known facts already there, it's like, okay, obviously the Chancellor is connected to this Sith. Sorry, I can't speak today.
Me neither.
Yeah, the Sith Lord that they're looking for here, whether that's through manipulation or him being the Sith Lord himself.
Yeah.
It's like obviously you should probably really jump on that before things get out of hand, especially if it has to involve the Chancellor of all people, the most powerful figure in the Republic.
Yeah.
So, and then one scene in particular I think is really a poorly put together scene is Mace versus Sidious. And so a couple of things. So I think Sidious takes Mace's back out way too quickly and unconvincingly. They just kind of stand there and get sliced up.
Mm-hmm.
And the fight choreography I don't think is not as good as it was in the other scenes in this movie. It's not bad, but it's just not good either.
No, it's a warm up.
Yeah. And then and one thing that I think is kind of weird about it is Mace was intending on doing things by the book, bringing them in, having them go to the trial. But then after, a certain point after the confrontation, he says, all right, I'm just going to kill you right here and now. It kind of seemed like, I just don't understand exactly where the rationale exactly happened because he says at least his rationale when he says he's going to do it, he says he has control of the Senate and the courts. He's too dangerous to be left alive. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But you kind of undercut that whole argument when you were initially just planning on arresting him and putting him on trial and having the Senate decide your fate. Let's see what else we got here.
Well, I'm going to talk on that just for a second.
Sure.
So, Mace has the ability of Shatterpoint, which is the ability to see, weak points in people, objects, and situations, events, stuff like that.
Now, does that apply to things outside of combat?
Yeah, 100%.
Does it? Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And so I think he saw, and maybe he got to the point where he was just kind of done. He was sick of sitting on his hands. He's able to, you're able to see, and that's why they sense those things. A lot of them, they're delving into that Shatterpoint kind of ability, but Mace just is more attuned to it.
Yeah.
And
so you're saying when he was fighting him, from when he fought him, from the beginning to the end, he kind of he used the Shatterpoint, and then he realized that.
I think realizing if he kills him, it's over. He probably didn't realize that until he was fighting him.
Gotcha.
Same with Dooku. He believed that if he would have killed Dooku sooner, the Clone Wars would have never happened.
Yeah.
Which is probably true.
Yeah. No. Exactly. So, no. Okay. I guess that does make sense here on that front here. Now, one thing that I get where you're coming from on this point, but it still kind of feels like it was played out weird. Is Anakin, when he shows up on this fight, he just literally stands there for a good couple of minutes while Mace has him at the tip of his lightsaber, and then he's shooting lightning, and then he's just letting things happen. I get he's conflicted on this, but I just feel like it just feels odd for him just to stand there and still do nothing when like you have two people like engaged in combat like that, I guess.
Yeah. I'm trying to. So part of this is what's it called? Vapad, I think is what it's called. Vapad is Mace Windu's lightsaber form.
Okay.
So Vapad was based off of his lightsaber combat style.
Okay.
Which is I think form 7. I don't know. This is getting deep into like
Star Wars lore.
Yeah. Like so his lightsaber combat style is like restricted among most Jedi. Mainly because that he uses the dark side, like it channels his own darkness into a weapon. So he's using the dark side basically against the dark side.
Weird.
Like I don't know how it works, obviously, but
yeah.
So and with that said, Mace's combat style, literally, there's no way Sidious could have beat him in a combat.
Oh, really?
There's no way because he was using that dark side against, like he was basically getting fed by him using the dark side.
Gotcha. So he was like redirecting it, kind of like how like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they do the redirect of lightning thing.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, so basically, there was literally no way for Sidious to beat him in combat.
Okay.
So they had to do a cheap shot because like no dark side use. That's the why he developed Vapad.
Yeah.
Was so he could combat Sith.
So yeah, which I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I understand like Sidious not being able to beat him, but I kind of feel like, you talk about how Anakin is like, the most powerful Jedi, or, he has like the potential to be the most powerful Jedi. He has like the highest midichlorian count out of like any Jedi that has ever existed. I feel like you could have like had him like actually square off with Mace. And
he wouldn't have beat him. That's why it had to be a cheap shot.
I feel like you could have written it that way, so he could have, because then you can actually show that, okay, yes, this is the most powerful Force user that is existing now here, and you can show that instead of like having it result into a cheap shot here.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of liked how they did it because there's with like Mace's fight style and all that. There's just no way Anakin could even beat him.
Sure,
but especially if you're a dark side user, like, and so yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think I mean, it is kind of cheap. That's the way that Mace goes out.
Sure, yeah.
I don't like how he died.
No.
But I understand why they did it.
Fair enough. Way. Yeah, I mean, probably the worst thing about the scene, terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible acting.
Terrible acting.
Like,
as far as Sidious,
I think even Anakin is like, what have I done?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, no, Sidious's acting in this,
it's so bad.
Oh, it's so bad. And I don't understand why his acting in this movie is just so over the top and cheesy, just because all you had to do was just channel the same energy you brought to Return of the Jedi here, where it's, more restraint on like, his like laugh, more subtle in terms of like his, evil demeanor and all that. Here he just hams it up so hard.
Yeah.
So, here's one thing that I didn't quite understand with Anakin's turn here. So, Anakin has to be the most gullible Jedi alive because he is told by Palpatine that he can save Padme's life in that scene that plays out beforehand where he confronts him and says like, you join me and we can save, your wife Padme from dying here. And then even like when he's trying to electrocute Mace, he says like, I have the power to save the ones that you love here. You must choose. But then like after, Mace is killed and they're talking about it, Palpatine says, well, to cheat death, there's only been one that's actually been able to achieve that. And that's Darth Plagueis, at least in terms of like he's referencing. But if we work together, I'm sure we can discover the secret. It's like, okay, that's a really bad deal or a deal that really deteriorated very quickly here. You said like, hey, I want you to turn and betray everything that you have stood for to this point, and I will save your loved one. And then he says like, well, I might not actually be able to do it here. I feel like, okay, that's a really bad deal to be accepting here, you know? And
I think at that point, Anakin already like had turned and
like he was too far gone at that point.
Pretty much. Like, I think that's what we kind of see in that room.
Yeah.
Like, and part of it, I think, like, is Palpatine has been a father figure almost to him since he was 9.
Yeah, to a certain point, yeah.
You know, at least maybe not a father figure, but a mentor for sure.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, he's definitely been feeding his ego, like ever since he was
stroking
9. Yeah, for sure. But yeah. So that being said, Chewbacca shoehorned in.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you do Kashyyyk though, you have to do Chewbacca.
I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. And even Kashyyyk, I kind of felt like, I don't know. I played Knights of the Old Republic before watching this movie, and I remember Kashyyyk looking a lot cooler in that game than it does in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, no. Because they have like villages and stuff like up in like these tall trees, and then they have like this elevator system that goes down into like the Shadowlands or whatever it's called, and it's like dangerous down there. I'm like, oh, that'd be... And so like going into this movie, playing Knights of the Old Republic, I'm like, oh, that'd be really cool to see in the movie here if they do that. And it's just like, oh, no, never mind. It's just a beach.
Yeah.
But
pretty much.
Yeah. And so I get why Anakin turned on the Jedi and the Republic. I mean, it makes it clear that he was fed up, you know, with how the Jedi were doing things. He obviously could not, you know, he had to keep his romantic relationship in secret. Mm-hmm. But I don't buy him flat out, you know, getting behind Sidious's propaganda after everything that's been revealed, because the thing is like, he knows that Sidious was fueling both sides of the war here. You know, he's full on corrupt.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously the Jedi suspect him for doing this, and like they put him on the mission to, you know, keep an eye on him for corruption. He proved the corruptions, but now he's like just doing a complete turnaround saying, oh no, the Jedi were the ones that were actually corrupt. Like, okay, buddy, like I understand you got issues with the Jedi and you want to save your wife, but you literally have seen that everything that the Jedi had said was true.
Yeah.
And all their suspicions are confirmed. And then you're legitimately, you know, saying, okay, I'm just going to repeat and regurgitate Sidious's propaganda that he's going to be telling the Senate floor in like about an hour here.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But Anakin killing younglings, I feel like, is the equivalent of a teenager trying to be edgy and doing something dramatic or over the top to prove that he is edgy.
I think he kind of had to too. Like, that was kind of the thing that I think Sidious was testing him on, was like, how
far are you willing to go here?
Yeah, are you willing to fully turn to the dark side?
Yeah, I mean, it does make it harder for me to stomach the fact that, okay, now you're going to, you know, become a good guy after murdering like a bunch of children when you are literally trying to save your own children here, you know? It seemed
yeah, that's a tough line to walk.
I feel like it's a weird route to take for the character. I get why they were trying to do it. They're trying to, you know, prove how far gone it is. But again, I feel like that's just like an edgy attempt rather than like saying like, okay, this is like, you know, like something that kind of progressed to be more natural or something like that, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it really shows kind of like what Palpatine wanted. He wanted those young people, because essentially those are all threats in the future.
Yeah.
He wanted the younglings dead, or I guess, I think this is from the novelization or other stuff, but he wanted either them dead or them to pledge themselves to the dark side so he could use them later.
Yeah. No, I totally get why Palpatine wanted them dead here. I mean, I totally get that.
But as far as Anakin actually following through with it,
I feel like Anakin following through with it is like George Lucas's attempt to like really like sell us that, okay, this guy actually turned here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think that was just kind of a marker for here's where Anakin's at right now.
Yeah. So going back to the Yoda and Sidious fight, like I said, great fight. I don't really get why Yoda just stopped fighting.
Yeah, I think part of that was his own like foresight, and even the seeing the shatter point, if you'll call it, for...
Does Yoda have shatter point?
Different Jedi could use it. Like, you know, like when I mean, it's something Mace uses on the rig, and he's kind of known for it.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
But Sidious kind of uses the Shatter Point when he senses that Vader's in trouble. Think of it in that kind of situation. Like Obi-Wan was got on to the ship.
Yeah,
probably wasn't supposed to be. He wasn't supposed to be on that ship, obviously, but he senses that threat that is threatening either something that Sidious has foreseen, or like there are different things that could change the outcome of the future, basically.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, what your argument is, Yoda used Shatterpoint while fighting Sidious, and then
I mean, it doesn't even. You don't have to even label it a Shatterpoint. Just he senses. I think he's defeated.
Okay.
Like he knows he can't beat him right now. At least
okay.
Where they're at and how they're doing it.
I mean. I guess. I mean, I just wish if that was the case, they elaborated a little bit more, just because all you see him do is like
run away.
Well, essentially run away, but you see, like, in terms of like what ended the fight, they're both like shooting lightning at each other, or like he's repelling the lightning, and then there's that big, force push that knocks them both off that Senate seat, and he just kind of falls down, which, I mean, typically Jedi don't take fall damage here is kind of one of the things that we established, like watching the Attack of the Clones. And then he just kind of stops instead of like, still fighting. There's not like, a bunch of clone troopers that show up or something like that here. So I don't know. I just feel like there probably could have been a little bit of a better way of like, saying like, hey, this is why Yoda could not fight or defeat the Emperor at this point.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that.
But yeah. And then, okay, the high ground is a poor excuse for winning that last duel.
I think it's an explanation. Obviously, tactical advantage for sure.
Yes, absolutely tactical advantage. Like in any real life fight or any real life combat situation, having the high ground always, a good benefit. However, that argument is moot when you can like jump like
that's true
hundreds of feet up into the air.
Why didn't you jump a little higher?
Yeah, and like jump like just behind them, and then be like, okay, yeah, we doing this here,
Yeah, I mean, I think they had to explain why he got burned and all that stuff. And
sure, I mean, I just think, I don't know. I think because I remember watching the behind the scenes for this movie. And, Lucas is talking about, this is a very interesting fight because you have Obi-Wan who has more tactical knowledge, who is more experienced in all this stuff here, and you also have Anakin, who is not as experienced and not as seasoned, but he is more powerful here. And so you have these two things playing at odds with each other here, and like basically trying to kill one or the other in a different way here.
Yeah,
and I get where he was trying to go with like, okay, I have the high ground. You can't win against me type of scenario here. I just wish they went about it in a way that makes more sense or is less plot hole contrived.
Yeah, I think Obi-Wan, it was also metaphoric. Like, he had the physical high ground, but he's like, I have the upper hand in this fight.
Yeah.
I trained you. I'm your master. Like,
yeah.
I'm more, like you're saying, I'm more experienced.
Yeah.
My lightsaber combat is straight up defense.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat me.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of both of that. Like, in one of like, hey, if you haven't noticed, I'm still here, and we're both exhausted. He's like, and
I can still keep going.
I can still take you on type of thing. I think obviously it's kind of cheesy dialogue there of,
sure,
I have the high ground.
Well, yeah, it's become a meme.
Well, and maybe, I don't know if Obi-Wan was wanting to finish it. He may lured him in and was like, I have you. Like,
yeah.
And Anakin fell for it. And so it's Anakin's stupidity that he's in the spot he's in. Because if he would have been like, you're right, I'll be back to kill you later. That's literally all he could have done. Like, he could have done that.
Yeah.
And it probably would have been way different.
Well, right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think like what you could have done is like, let's say you have a scene where like Obi-Wan and Anakin are like doing some like, sparring training like earlier on in the movie. And, Obi-Wan is like exploiting like this one, like, flaw in like Anakin's technique. He's like, you gotta figure that out, man. Otherwise, it's going to be used against you someday here. And like, if you had that play out instead of just saying, yeah, I'm on a higher platform and you could jump way high over but you don't for some reason. So
maybe he's just tired.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I still think Anakin is still the worst written character in Star Wars.
Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, I mean, if Jar Jar Binks had like more significance,
exactly the point in case
in Star Wars, he would be.
No, yeah, I understand where you're going with it.
I mean, just poorly written, poorly acted, and just makes very dumb decisions. And I mean, and here's the thing, in this movie, they definitely had the opportunity to mature him. And I think they definitely did from between episode 2 and episode 3, but it's still not like, the point where you want it to be for like, he's not matured to the point where it's like, okay, I can see this person being Darth Vader that we know from the original trilogy.
Also, the original trilogy is about 20 years later. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a lot of time for him to morph into that character.
Sure, yeah. I mean, but as of right now, this was originally supposed to tell us how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like we completely got to like that point where he adopted the Vader persona or like personality that he has in the original movies here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think they matured him quite a bit. I think that obviously it could have been done a little bit different.
Sure.
I don't really know how you do it though, to be honest.
I mean, obviously I'm not a script writer, but I'll tell you one thing, not like that. I mean,
yeah.
So, but yeah. So, what are some thoughts that we had rewatching this movie here?
I said it earlier, and you kind of say it early on, but CGI held up pretty well.
Yeah,
for this movie,
I think there's like maybe like a few parts where it's like, I mean, especially the clone troopers for one. I mean that sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, but
I think, but no, I think for the most part, yeah, it does hold up a lot better than the last two movies here. I think Grievous is like absolutely just the cheesiest Star Wars character that ever exists. Like just some bad Russian accent and just, some asthmatic cough and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the firefighters in the Star Wars universe, those guys are on point.
They're hitting it hard when
like
that he's coming in for a crash.
Yeah,
landing.
when the Grievous's ship is like coming into Coruscant's atmosphere and it's just lit on fire. Those guys are just right there. It's just like, oh yeah,
this is normal.
Yeah, like we were just at our space firehouse looking out in the sky. It's like, all right, looks like it's go time here. We're gonna intercept that. But and Obi-Wan is still anti-politician. Like at the beginning,
good for him.
Yeah, good for him. God bless his soul. Yeah. But yeah, like at the very beginning when they rescue the Chancellor and they're talking about like this whole like, oh, are you coming along? He's like, nah, I'm not into politics. Matter of fact, you're actually the hero of this mission. You should hobnob with those guys here.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want anything to do with those guys.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and I think it comes to fruition, obviously. His whole anti-politician agenda is like obviously played out with Sidious being Sidious.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's saying, "I am the Senate." So Obi-Wan had some kind of
Obi-Wan was right.
He knew it the whole time.
He was right. And then we talked about like Anakin just is terrible. Like it's not very subtle in keeping his marriage a secret here. So when Obi-Wan ambushes Grievous. And that
where he jumps down on the rafters.
Like, hello there.
I love that line.
No, it's
hello there.
No, it's a good line, but it's an Anakin move because
100%. Yeah,
he's going in with like no.
They rub off on each other too. Like,
I guess, yeah, but
I guess that plays into their dynamic a little of
yeah, which is in this movie it's a brother relationship, whereas like in the last movie it was a father-son relationship that they had, and they even like like verbally, like, say that is the dynamic.
Yeah, you were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.
Well, and even like in the last movie, he's like, Master, you're like a father to me. And stuff
and he's also kind of downplaying his maturity, like my very young apprentice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of normal at that age. Like 19 to 23 is very different.
Sure. No, it is.
So I get it. Like, and Anakin probably has matured a lot and grown more powerful. And has earned kind of Obi-Wan's trust and all that stuff. So yeah, I get it.
Speaking of Obi-Wan, like can't hold on to his lightsaber either.
Nope, he loses it and then Literally.
Freaking hypocrite.
Well, and if that message would have came a minute or 20 seconds earlier,
yeah,
Obi-Wan would be dead.
Oh, yeah.
Because he literally hands him his lightsaber. He's like, you lost this, General.
Yeah.
And then he gets the Order 66 call as he's taking off.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, crap.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, no. That was one scene I wish like Anakin was there to see it, just so he could be like, oh, what up here?
Yeah.
You know, you can't hold on to Jack either.
Yep.
So, so something I noticed in this rewatch, Obi-Wan does not put Anakin out of his misery.
No.
And I mean, and here's the thing. I know he doesn't want to kill Anakin. I mean,
he told Yoda, I won't kill him.
Right.
Basically.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, so what's the alternative? You just let him like just suffer and burn to death and have him become septic on the riverbanks of Mustafar here?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you know, given the options here, I feel like death by lightsaber is a lot cleaner than like, you know, just being in agony here. But
yeah, I don't know.
But I get it. It's like, you know, just given that situation, obviously, you know, if he did kill him, it wouldn't, you know, line up with like the original movies.
No, yeah.
So, and then why do they not wipe R2's memory at the end of this movie? Because they wipe C-3PO's or 3CP.
C-3PO, yeah.
C-3PO, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it just seems like an odd choice just to wipe just only one of the droids that was involved, not both. But you know, in this like rewatch, we were kind of talking about like, you know, one of the unique things about it is we watch, you know, 4 and 5 first, and then we jump back to 1, 2, and 3 to see how Anakin's story plays out. And in all honesty, I think the order of this rewatch has made it harder for me to swallow the fact that Darth Vader turns and gets redeemed in Return of the Jedi, because throughout this pretty much entire prequel trilogy, you don't really see Anakin just be like really utilitarian, like being like, okay, I'm going to do this for the greater good. I'm going to do this basically because it's the right thing, or I have the conviction to do the right thing. It's like, no, I'm going to do these things because it personally benefits me, or because I want to do them here.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes me feel any different about the turn in Return of the Jedi. I think it makes more like a lot of sense just because, you know, at this point he thinks, you know, at the end of episode 3, he thinks his family's dead, right?
Yeah, no, he does.
And then there's that in episode, he finds out in episode 4 that he found out in episode 4 that Luke's his son, basically, and it reveals it to him in episode 5.
Yeah.
So I think that's that glimmer, and even Padme says there is good in him.
Yeah, which I mean, it's like I at that point when that line was said, I'm like, okay, you need to show me where that good was, because as far as I can see, he's always been selfishly motivated. Anything that he's really done hasn't been selfishly motivated. It has been lip service to the Jedi Order, just because that's, you know, the organization that he's a part of, and he has to, you know, do these things here. But other than that, it's like, you know, he's really not like a great moral person. He just does things, you know, selfishly. He's not like the classic, you know, hero, like kind of like how Luke is, where he's like, okay, I'm not involved in any of this here, but I'm going to still go out and do these things just because, like,
it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it changes how I think, because even in episode 5, you see the mercy that Vader gives Luke.
No, you do.
And all that stuff. So I think it was like a process, obviously, and that little glimmer is what supercharged his, you know, way back to the light, I think.
Yeah.
Which could, you know, that happens in everyday life where, you know, you have people in addiction and whatnot, and
yeah,
you know, a grandkid comes into the picture and they stop doing what they're doing because they want to have a relationship. Not all the time. Yeah, I'm saying it does help, though. It does help.
It can, yes. I mean,
or if you have a kid, it helps you stop doing all those. Sometimes stop doing the stupid stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
And kind of readjust and be like, okay, this is what's important.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking on that line about like, there's still good in him. Mm-hmm. I think that's another way of showing that Padme had some Force sensitivity.
Totally.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think for me in the rewatch, I mean, I kind of talked about a little bit of stuff with, and I agree with you on a lot of what you said, but I didn't realize how for sure Sidious was that Anakin was going to fall to the dark side from the beginning. I didn't pick up on that as much when I was younger, I don't think.
Sure, yeah.
This time around, I was like, he pretty much knew it from the get-go on that him killing Dooku that he was going to...
Like, he had the dominoes all lined up. They're just starting to fall now here.
And then Padme, when the whole like thing where Anakin's like, you sound like a separatist. And then she was saying, what if the government we fought for from the beginning was the very thing we are fighting? Like, what if the government has become
like
what we're fighting?
Exactly, yeah.
And it's pretty meta, I think, for real life in a lot of instances of just being so invested into a cause and not seeing the ramifications of what's going on around you.
Right. No, like fighting an enemy at the same time, like you might sink to that enemy's level here type thing.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
But no, I mean,
where's the line with that? There's the grayness in that.
Yeah, I mean, well, right now, I mean, I don't know when this will get listened to here, but we're recording this when there's a government-wide coronavirus shutdown here. And so, there's talk about, the government using a crisis to gain power, just very similar to how it's done in this movie. I mean, no, it does make you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even about other stuff just in, life or whatever. But and then Kashyyyk is pretty dope, I thought. I thought it was cool to see the planet.
Sure.
It's definitely not, how it's been portrayed in other media.
Yeah.
But I thought it was cool that we at least got that planet and we saw the Wookiees fight. I thought that was just pretty cool.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's time to wrap this whole thing up. So, I mean, just final thoughts on the matter. I mean, so I know I talked a lot about, the flaws in this movie and, probably at length, but regardless of like the flaws, I still think like the good in this movie definitely outweighs the flaws. And I enjoyed this movie quite a bit here. And it's easily the best movie in the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
I think if it had less baggage, like, so if like the last two movies didn't suck as bad as they did, and, some of the baggage in this movie was a little bit lighter, I think this movie could easily contend for the title of like best Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I think part of that too. I mean, I don't know George Lucas's process, but Episode 3 probably was written first of the prequels. I want to say, they wanted that movie to happen, so like, okay, or at least 1 and 3 might have been written.
Yeah,
like we need one in between to tie it together, and that's the one that ended up sucking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. That'd be an interesting way to see kind of like, okay, where exactly did things go wrong in that process here? But no, I mean, this is the movie that does live up to the promise of the prequels here. And I'm not sure where it ranks on my list right now. I mean, it's currently competing with 6 and 7, and I have to rewatch those to really kind of get a definitive idea of where those ones are going to be ranked. But I would definitely label this as one of the good Star Wars movies for sure. And I think it was almost one of the great ones. Like I'm talking like New Hope, Empire level.
Yeah, and I think for me, honestly, I love the rewatch. For me, I think it's in my top 3 right now. And that being, Empire and A New Hope are pretty much tied for first.
Yeah.
And then this would probably float into the 3 spot. I don't even know what the second spot would be at this point, but
yeah.
Right now, at least, like I said, I haven't watched the sequel movies in a long time either, or Return of the Jedi. So we'll see kind of how this shakes out. But yeah, I'm going to say it's probably going to be in my top 5 for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it is in my top 5. Yeah, pretty easily. I mean, yeah, no. So,
but yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for listening. We greatly appreciate it. Check us out on YouTube, all our social medias. So you can support us on Patreon. And, have an awesome week. Stay safe out there. And remember, everyone's a nerd about something.